Well, hello there, motherfuckers, and welcome to Corporate Brad. Clean shaven, and still the same Brad, but we're gonna do this video beardless. So, as promised, I think I said it during my Raw review, as I was talking about Elias and other wrestlers. I says I'm gonna do a little top 10 video of the top 10 careers that WWE completely fucked up, wasted these talents. So here we go. So I made a list here, and then I noticed that I forgot a particular name I wanted to talk about. So as a bonus, let's make this top 11 an honorable mention. This is in no particular order because I feel like there's at different levels where WWE has fucked up. These guys, like, some got, more exposure than others. More of them got TV time. And some of the people on this list got considerable TV time, but they might have ended up, in a bad way, not where they were originally intended or scheduled to, end up. Some of these people were main eventers or close to the main event, but never really made it, to the top level where they were supposed to, or I thought that they were supposed to make it to the top level, in my mind anyway, and they never did. So, let's start off with a bonus here. At number 11, Diamond Dallas Page, DDP. Undoubtedly, one of my favorite wrestlers. When I started watching WCW on a consistent basis back in late 1997, when I really started to get in wrestling for the first time, I really watched more WCW. It wasn't until we got into 1998, that I really started watching the WWF and really started liking Raw, and I started seeing that the characters and the show was more fun to watch, even though I was really into Goldberg. And I remember the hype for Bash at the Beach, 1998. That was like the first pay-per-view that I got super excited for. But then I remember that, I asked my parents, and I pleaded, and I begged them almost every single day in the month of August to order SummerSlam 1998. But the first, pay-per-view that I wanted to see and I had to see was Bash at the Beach 1998. And who was in the main event? Diamond Dallas Page, and he was teaming up with Karl Malone. And I used to watch basketball during this time. And who was on the opposing side? Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And he was teaming up with Dennis Rodman. And I wanted to, and I don't know what it was. I love DDP and how he was doing this hand signal. And, I remember they went on, the Jay Leno, which would be, I think at the next show they did, Road Wild or something like that. And then he teamed up with Jay Leno against Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. So DDP was at the top. So I know a lot of people's favorite was Sting when it came to top baby faces. But for me, DDP really resonated with me. I don't know what it was. It was his look. I thought he was super cool, and he was. I mean, I was spot on even as a kid. But I really wanted to see this pay-per-view, and I wanted to see him take down Hollywood Hulk Hogan so bad. And I thought this was awesome. It was fucking NBA, when there were real megastars in the NBA. Karl Malone versus Dennis Rodman. And to make it even better, Hulk Hogan, who, growing up as a kid, the biggest star. But, when I was a kid, I was still a mark. So, I hated Hulk Hogan because he was the bad guy. But I remember at the end of the match, what it was is we didn't order it. My dad had, a lot of friends where he worked that they would have the hot box, the illegal cable. And they would tape the wrestling shows for me. And so, they would give my dad the tape. They'd pass it around work. People would borrow the tape from, different employees. So, I got the tape, the day after it happened. So, and you didn't have to worry about spoilers because, there was no fucking internet. Really, no one had the internet I wouldn't get a computer for another year. So at the end of the match, when DDP and Karl Malone lost, you know, Dennis Rodman, Hulk Hogan cheated. I think a member of the NWO ran in or something like that. Maybe it was Bischoff. I remember I said to my dad, I was like so upset. I said, but they still won, right? Because they cheated. I'll never forget that I actually said that. I was so fucking upset. I wanted to see them win more than anything. And the fact that they lost, you know, and I was like, they cheated, right? So that means that they won. And no, they had lost. But, you know, anyway, when DDP made it to the WWE, I mean, I really loved the motivational speaker gimmick. I know it was a mid-card gimmick, and he feuded only for the European title. When we're talking about a former multi-time WCW World Champion, to me, DDP, I mean, he deserves so much more. I mean, when he burst on the scene in 2001 and started off like the invasion angle with a couple of other guys, I was like, man, him versus The Undertaker. And I thought that this was really interesting. I mean, we've talked about this with the Samoa Joe thing, how it's sort of a ripoff and how they could kind of copy this and make it a more successful angle. I mean, Undertaker just like obliterated DDP, and I was always like very upset by that because I was like, I never understood during the invasion why DDP started off so hot, but by the end of it, they treated the guy like a jobber. He just got his ass kicked, and I don't know what it was. You know, guys like Booker T seem to be in higher regard, and rightfully so. I mean, Booker T is a legend, but I never understood why DDP, you know, they didn't want to, like, keep him at an elevated status. I remember he was in the, you know, the inaugural brawl at the Invasion pay-per-view, which I thought was a great pay-per-view. A lot of people seem to hate that pay-per-view, but, you know, he was part of the 10-man tag that they had. And, you know, by the end of it, he wasn't even there at the Survivor Series tag, I remember. Like, he wasn't even a part of that tag match, I don't think. So it was like they had totally done away with DDP. They didn't see him as a main eventer for whatever reason, and he wouldn't main event again. You know, like I said, he would feud with Christian, and those were entertaining feuds. I like DDP in that setting, but you know, they really fucked him over when it came to the main event. I mean, this was one of the most recognizable faces on WCW television. I mean, you turned on Nitro, DDP was right there in the main event. DDP was right there fighting the NWO. He was one of the guys, like, fighting along Sting to take down the NWO. I really don't know why they didn't want to make this guy a main eventer. I mean, not only was this guy a good worker, but he had charisma out the ass. I mean, just to show you, look what he did with that motivational speaker gimmick. I mean, I remember when I was in junior high at the time. Well, I was in 8th grade when that was going on, and I remember me and my friends, and I had one really good friend that was like super into wrestling like me. I remember we'd always be going like this: "That's not a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing." We would say that like all the time in class, like when something would happen, that was like fucked up. And just to show you, like, DDP deserved so much better. So, hey, we're not even like through this list. That was number 11. So DDP deserved a lot better. His last match was against Hardcore Holly. And he sadly he re-injured his back, which was something that was really giving him a hard time. And so he would go on to DDP Yoga, and the guy is, he's in great shape now. So, he made a little appearance during the Royal Rumble a few years back, and I just thought that he deserved a lot better. So anyway, so that was number 11. So let's go to number 10, Neville. This guy, he was super talented. I'll never forget when I saw his finisher for the first time in NXT. But there was one thing that this guy was lacking. It was charisma. And I remember they were playing off of this on Raw, where The Miz was basically telling the guy he was boring. And I never liked this on television, like the same thing how they were saying that Lance Storm was boring on TV. And this might have been true, but Lance Storm being boring was kind of part of his gimmick. But they were saying, no, you're boring. I never liked this. I always felt that, we talk about this all the time in my Raw and SmackDown reviews. I hate when they expose the product right there on the show. If you know a character is boring, if you know that a segment or a storyline is bad, then instead of fucking criticizing it live on the fucking air, you know what you do? You change it behind the scenes. You rewrite the stuff. You change their character. What you don't do is say, hey, this guy's boring. But anyway, you had Neville just go fucking crazy on one of the other wrestlers. Maybe it was TJP. Some fucking dumbass motherfucker from 205 Live. And I remember, like, the change in the look. He shaved, like, the sides of his head with the long hair. He started growing out a beard. And he started cutting promos with that accent. And I was like, oh my God. This is what was missing from Neville. He was great. He was awesome. And the one thing, you know, that, like, I've posted this on Instagram before. To me, like, this guy is a fitness inspiration. This guy's got a fucking killer-ass physique. I mean, he's a short dude, just like me, and this guy's fucking biceps, his arms are fucking gigantic, and he's so proportional. You know, you want to talk about a guy like Finn Balor, who's, I think, even a little bit taller than Neville, but Finn Balor is just, like, cut up. You know, not to say that Finn Balor isn't in good shape. He is. But the thing is, you put him side by side with Neville. And I never understood why fuckboy Balor is, like, considered to be a world, you know, title contender. He's the first ever Universal Champion. But Neville was only good enough to be a Cruiserweight Champion. And the simple fact of the matter is that Neville, you know, he looks like a bodybuilder. And, you know what I'm saying? He might be a little bit shorter than Balor. Maybe the same size. Maybe the same height, I mean to say. But, you know, he's got a way better physique. He's got a main event level physique. That you want to talk about Smarks. The Smarks like him. I think he, you know, with that accent and everything when he talked like this, I was like, damn. This is, you know, this guy's got charisma. It was just hiding away in him. He just needed to go heel. So, you know, I know everyone always says that they think the answer that everybody not being over is just for them to turn heel. Oh, he's not over, turn him heel. But this was a case where turning somebody heel meant everything to the character. And so he went heel, and to me, I mean, I think the guy was starting to get over really well. The only thing keeping him down is that he was part of 205 Live, which nobody gave a shit about. So, you know, Neville, I don't know what happened. He started the feud with Enzo, and I liked this feud. I thought it was interesting. It was kind of at the crux of where Enzo was transitioning into a heel, and Neville was sort of going babyface, but he was still like a badass babyface in a way. You know, he was still talking like he was from Game of Thrones, and, you know, I don't know what happened. He dropped the title, and that was it. They never called him back onto TV. They upset the guy by keeping him off TV, and now they lost him. He was still signed to WWE, and for months and months, it was rumored that he was going to return. They were talking a deal through, and, you know, this is the thing about WWE. They miss out on so many opportunities. Like, I just don't get it. You have a guy like Finn Balor who you're going to continuously try and do different things with this guy. You're going to waste our time by putting schmucks like the Revival on my TV. You're going to waste your time with like the B Team, with this, you know, all these stupid fucking things they do on TV. And you've got a great character here that looks like $1 million, and you're gonna just fuck him over? At number 9, CM Punk. I mean, I guess you could say he should be lower down the list, but like I said, this is in no particular order. For fuck's sakes, we had a number 11 on the top 10 list, right? CM Punk. So, you know, I don't know what it was. The Smarks were complaining about his title run, and rightfully so. The guy had the world title, and he was never in the main event until he faced John Cena you know, what was it, a triple threat match at SummerSlam, you know, along with the Big Show. You know, and once again, they exposed the product, you know, where John Cena says, you're not good enough to be a world champion. You know, you're not even in the main event and you're world champion. I'm like, well, that shows that the fucking company put the belt on him and then they decided to not put him in the main event. So, you know, he was at WrestleMania. The WWE Championship match was like in the middle of the fucking card. The WWE Championship was in the middle of the card. A belt that was defended in the main event for years. You think about, you know, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. You think about, you know, Stone Cold versus The Rock. You know, you think about all these different world title matches where the WWE Championship was the centerpiece. And then all of a sudden, CM Punk wins it, and they're like, you know, this guy's super over and everything. So, we're even jumping ahead to 2012 there, right? So, let's rewind a little bit about CM Punk. The Summer of Punk comes along. And this actually went into, like, mainstream news for some reason. I don't know what the fuck happened. But everybody was reporting that CM Punk's contract was up, and it was, like, a big thing. And, you know, they got a lot of publicity out of it. I don't know how the fuck that happened. But I remember, like, looking online. I'm like, okay. So, you know, I had been taking a break from WWE for a few years and just kind of like sporadically coming back to it and watching some things online like the Nexus storyline and Daniel Bryan getting fired and then returning at SummerSlam of 2010. But I remember when my friend had invited me over to watch WrestleMania 27. Then as the year progressed, the Summer of Punk started up, and I was like, oh, you know, this seems awesome. CM Punk is going to leave the company, and he's WWE, and he might, you know, and he might leave with the championship if he wins it at SummerSlam. So he was promising this, and then SummerSlam came, and John Cena and CM Punk tore the fucking house down with an amazing fucking main event. That still to this day is one of my favorite matches, and I've talked about it when I've done my top 10 favorite matches. There, you know, that's right up there with me. Like, here's some of my favorite matches for anybody that this is gonna be a long video, by the way. So, you know, we're not even like halfway through the list, and we're almost at the 20-minute mark. Favorite matches include WrestleMania 17, Stone Cold versus The Rock. The Canadian Stampede 10-man tag, without a doubt. And, you know, somewhere in that top 10 is CM Punk and John Cena. That was a super over, super hot main event. I think that it was definitely one of the best SummerSlam main events I've ever fucking seen. And it was on fire. And he won. And so CM Punk had the belt, and they had like John Laurinaitis trying to rush in, trying to stop the match, trying to screw CM Punk. It was just some great stuff, some great booking. And it was one of the last times when there was a real story involved in the WWE Championship match. Not this lame-ass, bad acting shit you're seeing with AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. Like, this was good, and there was a little bit of a shoot going on as well, because CM Punk was unhappy with the direction of his career. And so, you know, he ended up leaving. And then they held a tournament to crown a new champion. Then CM Punk returned like 2 weeks later, and they fucked the whole thing up. Came back way too soon. Then, you know, Triple H then beat him. You know, oh my God. And then it was out of control. And then CM Punk dropped the title to The Rock. And normally I'd be happy about that, but, you know, then it was just like The Rock ended up just being a transitional champion. And then after that, the year 2013 leading into 2014, CM Punk just, oh my fucking God, what a horrible, horrible turn of events. You know, they just kind of relegated this guy to the upper mid-card. He got nowhere close to being in the WWE champion. And I remember one of the things I'll never forget. Big E, John Cena, and CM Punk putting their hands out like one of these, you know, the ones, you know, it's kind of like a team thing, and then you go, yeah, go team, like that. That was the last image I have clearly in my mind of CM Punk in the WWE when they were all backstage, making CM Punk like a super smiley baby face. Go team! And I'm like, this is not the CM Punk character. CM Punk's character was supposed to be like, I don't give a shit. Like, you know, CM Punk. Like punk music. Like, you know, anti-establishment. You know, and CM Punk knew how to talk. He had a character, you know, that wasn't like really just like a gimmicky character. It was just him being himself. He was a bit of a jerk. He was conceited, egotistical. But it worked for the wrestling world. And somehow, some way, they just, you know, fucked him up. Like, and rightfully so, he ended up fucking leaving. At number 8, Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn. So, you know, I understand when it came to the Radicals, Eddie Guerrero really shined through as the guy with the most charisma. I mean, come on. You know, you look at Eddie Guerrero, you listen to each promo that these guys would cut, and Eddie Guerrero always stood there. You saw right away out of the gate, they put Eddie Guerrero with China, the Mamacita was super over. Eddie Guerrero was obviously the most marketable out of the bunch. Benoit, you know, I know it's very risque saying this, you know, the Smarks don't seem to care, but you know, it's like, I really feel funny when I talk about Benoit. Like, this guy was a good wrestler. I really liked him, and I was super happy and pulling for the guy when I saw WrestleMania 20 live and in person. I mean, this was a guy that, you know, obviously he was a victim of concussions and everything, but, you know, we still can't celebrate Benoit, you know, as much as we would if, you know, he just, like, died like Eddie Guerrero, like, you know, just, if, because, you know, still murdered his wife, murdered his son, so we can't, you know, be super happy about Benoit. But Benoit had a thing, you know, this and everything, and, you know, the nicknames and everything, and Benoit, you know, with the toothless aggression, there was marketability, and a Chris Benoit. Perry Saturn, to me, I think, also had marketability, and so did Malenko. When they toyed around with their characters, and remember they punished Perry Saturn by having him, you know, act stupid, and with Moppy and everything, I thought that when he did that, I thought that was fucking hilarious. And, I mean, they had been doing stuff like this to Saturn for his whole career. You know, Bischoff made, or whoever it was, Kevin Sullivan, I don't fucking know, made Perry Saturn wear the skirt when he lost to Jericho, that match stipulation. If he lost, he'd have to wear a skirt. He always made that shit work. Even when management was trying to embarrass and humiliate the guy, remember, he would put the guy's head underneath the dress, and, you know, as he was applying, like, the submission. Then with Moppy, remember stuff like, you know, he then put, you know, Devon or Bubba Ray Dudley's glasses on, and he pushed Bubba and said, get the muffins. I mean, the guy just, he was charismatic. He knew that when he went out there, he had to do the best he could do. And I think that he was a great wrestler, and I think when it came right, and plus, the guy just looked fucking tough as shit. And the fact they told that story that Saturn, his eye was crooked because he used to get abused as a kid. I thought that there was so many more stories they could have told with a Perry Saturn. And Malenko, I thought the ladies' man James Bond gimmick, it's so much of a shame that that was mostly on Sunday Night Heat. And remember when he was like going after Lita? I don't know. I thought that stuff was super entertaining. I think that these guys, they only, touched the surface on them. And these guys were great wrestlers. I mean, if you want to talk about this from a smarky perspective, like who's got the best work rate, these guys were fucking awesome wrestlers, and they had some really good matches. It's just a shame that, they just weren't held in such high regard. So, and there's like no excuse for this. They came together as a tandem. It didn't take long for them to break them up. I mean, I don't want to like come too hard on this because I really enjoyed their time with WWE. I think the year 2000 was a very fucking amazing year. Even though, like I said, I'm an Attitude Era guy, and the 2000 is still an Attitude Era, I still favor the Vince Russo style of the Attitude Era. You know how much I love that style of writing. It was more over the top and stuff, but, there was still some great stuff going on in the year 2000, so I don't want to knock it too hard, but those were two guys that they really could have done a lot better with. At number 7, Ultimo Dragon. Now, I know we could talk about charisma, and, the only guy like Rey Mysterio is probably the only guy that, didn't have a lot of charisma, didn't have a lot of mic skills, but got over. But the same thing with Ultimo Dragon. The costume, it was marketable. I think you could have sold a lot of those masks, just like the Rey Mysterio mask. And to me, I think Ultimo Dragon's mask was even more awesome than Rey Mysterio's. I think, maybe Rey Mysterio's is a bit more iconic. But I always thought that Ultimo Dragon just looked fucking awesome coming out with the cape. And then they added more to his entrance. When he got to WWE, this, and then the fucking fire would fucking shoot out. What are we going to remember this guy for in his WWE tenure? Tripping on his fucking cape at WrestleMania 20. I don't know what it was. It's like they put the vignettes out for this guy. He was going to be big. He was going to come in there. You probably could have had probably the only over Lucha feud besides maybe Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio would have been Ultimo Dragon Rey Mysterio. I believe if there was one other guy that you probably could have got over that wore a mask in WWE, it would have been Ultimo Dragon. It's just they didn't put him out there. It was their job to build him. If they felt that he wasn't getting the proper crowd reaction, they should have done more things with him. They could have tagged him up with Ray. They could have done so many more things with this guy. I mean, when he came out in WCW, the guy was over. I mean, people liked him. I mean, he had a fucking flashy-ass costume. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not like some of these other guys that they bring out. He had a presence to him, and they could have done a lot more with this guy. At number 6, Woken Matt Hardy, Broken Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy as a whole. First, let's talk about, Matt Hardy and Mattitude. Matt Hardy has always been a creative genius. And I've said this before. I went to a book signing at Borders in Long Island when the book was released. Matt Hardy is probably the most awesome and personable wrestler that you could ever meet. The only other guy I would say that could rival that was probably Goldust. Out of the wrestlers I've personally met, those were probably only 2 wrestlers that actually wanted to talk to me. And, I guess a lot of people will probably be out there saying, "Oh, that's why nobody likes you, Brad. Just like here on YouTube, we don't like you." But I'm just saying, it's like, these guys are fucking awesome. And now when I watch them on TV, like, I pull for them. I mean, and that's part of the reason why I'm always so positive when I talk about, like, Goldust or Matt Hardy. I think that not only are these guys great on TV and they come across as true stars, but they're awesome people. And you can just see it. I think that they're just, guys that deserve a lot just for being, great guys. And I want to see them prosper. So Matt Hardy started this Mattitude gimmick. Late 2002, when he headed over to SmackDown, they broke up the tag team with him and his brother. I thought it was brilliant. There was, Matt Fax. He was just a super, ego-inflated heel. And, I thought it was genius. He also had a couple of followers. They had Crash Holly and Shannon Moore with him, and they called them, MFers, which was funny. Hey, hello there, motherfuckers, right? So, right away, that was super over with me. And it was over with the crowd, and people were liking Matt Hardy. He was getting some genuine heel heat. And the broken Matt Hardy gimmick. I mean, my God. I mean, you talk about... I mean, he had help with from Jeremy Borash, input from his brother Jeff. But, Matt Hardy still had a lot of creative input. And I mean, so if after a fucking year, almost a year of Matt Hardy being in WWE, let's say like 9 months, they finally decided, let's do it. Let's turn Matt Hardy into his TNA character. Fuck, Impact Wrestling, TNA, suing us for whatever, for copyright infringement. We're going to do it. And they were fine, right? No copyright infringement lawsuits or anything like that. So, and then they just, they spent a lot of time on this Bray Wyatt feud. They only gave us, like, one thing at the Hardy compound, and then that was it. They put him in a tag team. I thought that was actually a good idea. They had a lot of potential, but, like, it went nowhere. They had so many opportunities to do so many entertaining things with them, and they didn't do anything with them. And now Matt Hardy is talking about retiring? Like, he's fulfilled his last date? I hope it's a work, but it's probably not, judging by the way how things are transpiring online. I mean, man, WWE, you really fucked up a guy that gave this company so much. Gave his fucking well-being, gave his body. He's talking about how his, like, pelvis and his lower back are, like, fusing together. I mean, this guy is given his his whole livelihood was based on mostly, helping the WWE product. A firm part of the Attitude Era in the year 2000. He might have been one of the most over guys besides Stone Cold and The Rock and Taker. He was right up there with those guys. They even put them in tag team matches together in the main event. And the guys were super over with super massive receptions. And Matt Hardy's character... how many people were chanting delete? Yeah, I know it's a lot of smarks, but this was a character where they could have got mass appeal from the outside. It also raised their ratings on Impact, for fuck's sakes. And it could have done the same for this product. But lo and behold, Matt Hardy is now retired, and the broken and woken Matt Hardy gimmick are now gone. Great job, WWE. And guess what? And now Bray Wyatt isn't anywhere to be seen. Fantastic, right? Raven at number 5. Now, Raven was probably one of the most intriguing characters, and I think he was maybe even too intriguing for Vince McMahon. Probably if Vince Russo was still there, he probably would have done a better job. I thought that they were doing some interesting stuff in WCW with Raven. The Smarks didn't like it, where Raven was actually part of like a rich family and he was just like a spoiled brat. But, Raven got a lot of time to shine on Sunday Night Heat, where he became the GM there. And they were doing a lot of fucking, good shit, where like Raven was making his playground. Now, they didn't really elaborate on this and, do as much as they really could, because it was Sunday Night Heat and WWE didn't really give a shit. They were putting everything behind their big machine, which is Raw and SmackDown. So they didn't really have enough time for fucking Heat. And, I don't know what it was, but, they just didn't get Raven. They didn't understand that this was like a psychological character, which I really don't get, because it was very Jake Roberts-ish, which Vince McMahon helped put that guy over big time. So I don't know what it was that really shocked them so much about Raven, but, you know, I don't know what it was. I guess maybe there was just so many big stars at that time, there wasn't a spot for Raven. So maybe it's understandable, but it's a real shame. I've always loved Raven. I've always thought he was a great guy. You know, when a kid, I met him one time, and he it's probably one of the grumpiest wrestlers I ever met, but that's not going to affect my opinion on how great he was in the wrestling world. So I would have, you know, loved to see more out of Raven. And I think there was a lot of potential there. We could really use a Raven nowadays. Can you imagine, like, a broken Matt Hardy and Raven feud? I mean, that'd be really interesting. I mean, you know, if we had better writers, of course. At number 4, Mr. Kennedy, Ken Kennedy. Now, I know you could argue that, you know, Kennedy made some bad decisions, you know, with steroid usage and everything like that. But, you know, I don't know what it was, but, you know, I think they should have overlooked that major steroid thing that happened, you know, after the Chris Benoit fiasco. You know, they compromised their whole massive storyline of Vince McMahon's illegitimate son just to punish this guy. Just so they can make a comedic storyline out of, you know, Hornswoggle being Vince McMahon's son. And, you know, that was funny. But, man, like, if Ken Kennedy, like, was announced as his son, that would have been fucking awesome. I mean, you know, this guy deserved to be world champion. He was charismatic as hell. This guy had a look to him. I mean, he would have really, like, been a major star. Especially with that, having it be like Vince McMahon's son. I don't know where the WWE would be now if, you know, that WWE had taken that path instead of the Hornswoggle path. We would have had a new champion, a new main eventer. You know, it would have been a completely different story. So, you know, Kennedy screwed himself. He never quite got back to where he was. And then, of course, we've heard out of his own mouth that, you know, with John Cena and everybody, they kind of just got him thrown out. So, you know, after Kennedy kind of fucked them over with the steroid thing, I kind of get why. But I kind of felt like he should have been punished. They should have fined him, you know, a considerable amount of money. You know, maybe make him work certain dates without getting paid. You know, something like that. You know, but the thing was, you know, and he was suspended for 30 days anyway. I'm not sure if it was with pay, but it should have been without pay then. But instead, they compromised their own storyline, and I thought that was just, you know, they still do that to this day. They always fuck themselves over, you know, like they did with Baron Corbin and everything. Like, they're on one track here, and then they just fuck themselves up on purpose because, you know, a wrestler is not acting the way that they want them to. So, you know, I don't really get that, but, you know, that's what they want to do at the end of the day. Then, you know, that's what's going to happen. They want wrestlers to act a certain way, and when they don't, you know, they want to punish them. And, you know, the product suffers because of that. I understand why they want to do it, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in, you know, the grand scheme of things, in the long run. At number 3, Elias. I go on and on about Elias during my Raw reviews for people that normally watch them here on this channel, and I gotta stand by it. This is a guy that, to me, he is one of the most over guys on the roster. I think, you know, they've totally just ruined this guy. I mean, you know, the guy didn't even have a match at WrestleMania, for fuck's sakes. And for all intents and purposes, if anybody should have had a match at Mania, it should have been him. I mean, really, it's just like Finn Balor had a match at fucking Mania, but this guy didn't? I mean, you know, I don't know what to tell you. It's just like when you have the whole crowd chanting, you know, walk with Elias. How are you going to just sit there and ignore that? And, you know, we see it, like, on Raw. This guy is, like, world championship caliber material. But every single week he goes out there, it's just like, nothing. No progression, no nothing. He's a great character. He's got a great look. He talks the talk, but they're just not having him fucking walk the walk. I get it. They don't want to build megastars nowadays, but it looks fucking ridiculous. Why wouldn't you want megastars? Fuck your brand. It sucks. I mean, why wouldn't you want to have big stars? You're scared they're going to leave for Hollywood? How much money did The Rock make you? Money that you would never be able to duplicate. Even though he ended up leaving for Hollywood. I mean, so if that's the case, then build as many stars as you can so you can have that continued success. So you can have more Rocks and Stone Colds. You might not be able to reproduce or have another Rock and another Stone Cold. That's why those guys are individuals. But for every generation, we should have a new star that does things differently. That's, it's just, that should how it be. Otherwise, there's no point in even fucking watching if we're not going to have new stars. Like, there was Hulk Hogan, there was Macho Man. No one could ever surpass those guys. Nobody ever thought they'd be another, wrestler of that caliber. And then Stone Cold and The Rock came along. At number 2, Lashley. I'll be honest, when Lashley came into WWE, I wasn't too thrilled with the guy. To me, he just seemed like someone that was there to replace Brock Lesnar. But then when I saw him in TNA, I was like, this guy's starting to look legit. He's part of, American Top Team. This guy, is in MMA. He's legit now. He's in great shape. He was in great shape when he first arrived on the scene. But, man, Lashley, he looks like a main eventer now. He's carrying himself like a main eventer. And what is he doing? He's getting beat up by guys in drag, feuding with Sami Zayn. He's got a hype man now. He's not really doing anything. He's sort of hanging out in the mid card. What the fuck is... It's not, he beat Roman Reigns, and we all thought that Lashley was going to go on to WrestleMania, and there was all these rumors about how Hulk Hogan was going to present the title to him and everything when he beat Brock Lesnar, and what's happening now? Nothing. Lashley is doing absolutely... How do you go from pinning Roman Reigns, which is an honor that hardly anybody gets to do, and that's rightfully so, because, it's Roman Reigns, but how are you going to knock him down so many pegs? What, was he getting too close to being a megastar as well? And at number 1, Enzo. And I know this is a very unpopular choice, and I'm pretty sure most people were with me on this list until number 1. And this is where everyone's going to lose their shit. Oh, Enzo! He was a fucking asshole. Asshole or not, egotistical or not, to me, when Enzo appeared on my TV, when Enzo went heel, I stopped, I listened. Enzo made me concentrate on the show. Enzo made me get into the show. I liked what I was seeing with Enzo. I thought that this guy was, he was getting legit heel heat. I think when they put the belt on him, I was like, oh, why are they putting this guy in 205 Live? And then he made me interested in 205 Live. I was actually checking out the segments on the network to watch 205 Live just so I could see him interacting with all the other cruiserweights. I was like, damn, if one guy can do that, make me want to watch a shit-ass show like 205 Live, this guy is fucking money. And then you hear the plans about what they were going to do with the guy on Raw 25. He was going to have one of the most entertaining segments with the $1 Million Man buying his Cruiserweight Championship. There was going to be some great things planned. And then, what happened? Some fucking bitch lied about him. And, WWE totally abandoned Enzo, making him feel alone. And not, they showed where they stand when one of their employees in trouble. They accused him of being dishonest. They fired him and, just threw him in the fucking dustbin like a piece of trash. Even though this guy was, getting interest on the product, this guy was actually generating the most heat they've had in fucking years. The most heat I've saw since CM Punk. You know, they hadn't seen that heel heat in years. That guy was finally giving it to him. And what did they do? Well, they said, you know what? This is too much bad publicity for us. They threw their hands up in the air and said, fuck Enzo. I say fuck the WWE. That was fucking horse shit what they did to him. So to me, I look at it, and that's the reason why I'm putting him at number 1. That was probably one of the biggest fuck-ups, because that wasn't just, you know, oh, we don't have room for him in the storylines. No, you know, there's too many other stars. We don't want mega stars. No, that was them showing exactly what they do to talents when they're in most need. Where this guy's feeling alone, he is facing jail time because someone is lying. He did something terrible, and the WWE, his employer. The company, this is not just like some 9 to 5. He's with them 300 days out of the year, right? Some shit like that. What, right? So, why would they just abandon a guy like this? Especially a guy that they had massive stock in. I mean, they were going to plan this big, you know, Raw 25th anniversary extravaganza around this guy. And they just fucking kick him to the curb like a used fucking piece of garbage. It really shows what kind of a guy Vince McMahon is. And how management works in WWE. It's fucking bad. It's probably one of the worst places you could probably work for. And you probably think your job is bad. I mean, it seems like working for the WWE is fucking horrendous. It's probably good money, but, I mean, you know, one wrong slip-up, I mean, my fucking God. So there you go, guys. There's my top 10. I made a little bit of a top 11 of sorts because I couldn't, you know, make up my mind where everyone should be placed. And I had an honorable mention in here. Braun Strowman. You know, I didn't want to put him on the list because he's still a main eventer. So he's doing better than Elias and other people on this list. But, you know, Braun Strowman definitely might be making this list if I do one like next year or like in another fucking 8 months or whenever the next list will be, you know, that I do like this. So, you know, there you go, guys. That is the top 10 careers that WWE has ruined. Hope you all enjoyed. Guys, please subscribe, click the bell so you get all my notifications when I post all my new videos. Check out some of my other content. And guys, I'll be seeing you next time.